Welcome to the module on group processes and group dynamics. The learning objectives of the module are: at the end of this module, the learner will be able to understand the different aspects of group dynamics and understand how appropriate development of group dynamics can lead to positive outcomes for both the group and its members. Introduction. Definition. Group dynamics is a system of behaviors and psychological processes occurring within a social group. Intra-group dynamics, or between social groups, intergroup dynamics. The study of group dynamics can be useful in understanding decision-making behavior, tracking the spread of diseases in society, creating effective therapy techniques, and following the emergence and popularity of new ideas and technologies. The forces that result from the interactions of group members are often referred to as group dynamics. Because group dynamics influence the behavior of both individual group members and the group as a whole, they have been of considerable interest to group workers for many years. This module will help you understand group dynamics and its various components in order to achieve positive outcomes through group work. Need for understanding group dynamics. In order to work effectively with groups, a thorough knowledge of group dynamics is important. Recognizing and understanding dynamics generated through the group process helps to avoid being victimized by harmful leaders and groups. This also ensures that members' socio-emotional needs are satisfied and the groups achieve goals consistent with the humanistic value base of the social work profession. In-depth knowledge of group dynamics is essential for understanding the social structure of groups and for developing beginning level skills in group work practice. Workers who follow these principles can intervene to help groups develop patterns of communication and interaction that meet members' socio-emotional needs while accomplishing group purposes. Strategies for promoting helpful group dynamics. Identify group dynamics as they emerge during ongoing group interaction. Assess the impact of group dynamics on group members and the group as a whole. Assess the impact of current group dynamics on future group functioning. Examine the impact of group dynamics on members from different racial, ethnic, and socio-economic backgrounds. Facilitate and guide the development of group dynamics that lead to members' satisfaction with their participation and that enable the group to achieve its goals. Dimensions of group dynamics. The following dimensions of group dynamics are particularly important to group workers in understanding and working effectively with all types of groups. Communication and interaction patterns, cohesion, social integration and influence, group culture. Communication and interaction patterns. Social interaction is a term for the dynamic interplay of forces in which contact between persons results in a modification of the behavior and attitudes of the participants. Northern, 1969. Communication is the process by which people convey meanings to each other verbally, in a written format, and or non-verbally. Communication entails the encoding of a person's perceptions, thoughts, and feelings into language and other symbols. The transmission of these symbols or language and the decoding of the transmission by another person. Distinct identity of the group. Members of a group necessarily look at defining their group with certain characteristics that are unique to the group. Comparisons are made with other groups in a manner that emphasizes positive qualities of the group. This gives the group a valued social identity. The optimal distinctiveness theory talks about the need for an individual to be similar to those with whom group membership is shared, and yet at the same time be different from others who are outside of the group. Size and physical arrangements. Group size and physical arrangements of the group dictate group dynamics greatly. The size of the group is directly proportional to the possibilities of potential relationship. For example, with 3 people, there are 6 potential combinations of relationships. But in a group with 7 people, there are 966 possible relationships. However, increase in the possibilities of relationships does not ensure opportunity to maintain them. However, increase in the possibilities of relationships does not ensure opportunity to maintain them. Also, with increased group size, there are also fewer opportunities and less time for members to communicate. This could create issues as members who do not get an opportunity to participate may not be committed to the decisions made by the group. This in turn leads to reduction in the sense of belongingness. Big groups also often experience the creation of subgroups that comprise people sitting in close proximity to each other, or those who become familiar in successive meetings. The physical arrangement of group members also influences interaction. It has been observed that when the members sit in a circle formation during group work, it leads to better involvement due to good eye contact. However, sometimes there might be a need to be seated in a manner depending on the objective of the interaction. Example, seating in rows. Power and status. The relative power and status of the group members plays a significant role in the dynamics that get created. Initially, members are accorded power and status on the basis of their position and prestige in the community, their physical attributes, and their position in the agency sponsoring the group. As the group develops, member status and power change depending on how important a member is in helping the group accomplish its tasks or in helping other members meet their socio-emotional needs. When members carry out roles that are important to the group, their power and status increase. When a member enjoys high status and power, other members are likely to direct their communication to that member. Group cohesion. Group cohesion is the result of all forces acting on members to remain in a group. There are several reasons that make a group attractive to its members. The need for affiliation, recognition, and security. The resources and prestige available through group participation. Expectations of the beneficial and detrimental consequences of the group. The comparison of the group with other group experiences. To facilitate group cohesiveness, it is essential that opportunities for interaction happen, or the design of group work has a requirement for group interaction. With the frequency of interaction, a sense of positivity develops in the group, which again promotes interaction. It must be noted here that a group that is too large in size can impede interaction and hence negatively impact cohesion. A group comprises individuals with varied personalities, and it is obvious that there will be differences in thought processes, opinions, and behaviors. However, if these differences are settled in a way that is satisfactory to most members, it will lead to greater cohesion. Cohesive groups are more likely to develop where there are shared values and beliefs, where individuals have similar goals and tasks, and where members have to interact together to achieve tasks. Group cohesiveness is also influenced by the formal reward system. Groups that offer rewards, resources, status or prestige that members would not obtain by themselves tend to be attractive. Therefore, workers should help groups to be rewarding experiences for members. Groups can affect absenteeism and turnover. Groups with a high level of cohesiveness exhibit lower turnover and absenteeism than groups with low levels of cohesiveness. Cohesiveness influences member satisfaction and intergroup conflict. The impact of group cohesion can, however, result in negative as well as positive results. A study of decision-making processes of US foreign policy groups conducted by Janus 1972 established that a cohesive group of individuals sharing a common fate exerts a strong pressure towards conformity. He coined the term groupthink to describe the exaggerated, irrational tendencies that appear to occur in groups, and argued that a group setting can magnify weakness of judgment. Team working is a good thing, but so is flexibility and independent judgment. The worker should ensure that the member's individuality is not sacrificed. A sense of pride amongst the members assists in group cohesion. Group workers must help the group develop pride in its identity and purpose. If the cost of participation in a group exceeds the benefits, members may stop attending. Group workers must try and ensure that the group is as attractive as possible to each member. Social integration and influence. Social integration refers to how members fit together and are accepted in a group. Groups are not able to function effectively unless there is a fairly high level of social integration among members. Social order and stability are prerequisites for the formation and maintenance of a cohesive group. Social integration builds unanimity about the purpose and goals of the group, helping members to move forward in an orderly and efficient manner to accomplish work and to achieve goals. Norms, roles, and status hierarchies promote social integration by influencing how members behave in relationship to each other and by delineating members' places within the group. They lend order and familiarity to group processes, helping to make members' individual behavior predictable and comfortable for all. Norms, roles, and status dynamics help groups to avoid unpredictability and excessive conflict that in turn could lead to chaos and the disintegration of the group. Too much conformity and compliance resulting from overly rigid and restrictive norms, roles, and status hierarchies can lead to the suppression of individual members' initiative, creativity, and intellectual contributions. At the same time, a certain amount of predictability, conformity, and compliance is necessary to enable members to work together to achieve group goals. Therefore, it is important for workers to guide the development of norms, roles, and status hierarchies that achieve a balance between too little and too much conformity. The extent of social integration and influence varies from group to group. In groups with strong social influences, members give up a great deal of their freedom and individuality. In some groups, this is necessary for effective functioning. For example, in a delegate council in which members are representing the views of their organization, there is generally little room for individual preferences and viewpoints. Norms and roles clearly spell out how individual delegates should behave. In other groups, however, members may have a great deal of freedom within a broad range of acceptable behavior. The following sections describe how the worker can achieve a balance so that norms, roles, and status hierarchies can satisfy members' socio-emotional needs while simultaneously promoting effective and efficient group functioning. Norms are informal rules of behavior shared and enforced by group members in order to stabilize and regulate behavior. They comprise shared expectations and beliefs about appropriate ways to act in a social situation, such as a group. Norms help to encourage organized and coordinated action to reach goals. The preferences of certain high-status members might be given greater consideration in the development of group norms than the preferences of low-status members. But all members share to some extent in the development of group norms. Norms develop as the group develops. As members express preferences, share views, and behave in certain ways, norms become clarified. Soon it becomes clear that sanctions and social disapproval result from some behaviors and that praise and social approval result from other behaviors. The emergence of norms as the group progresses, however, reduces the need for structure and control by the worker, since norms are developed through the interactions of group members. They also reduce the need for excessive controls to be imposed on the group from external forces. Norms vary according to the extent that people consider them binding. Some norms are strictly enforced, whereas others are rarely enforced. Some norms are more elastic than others. That is, some permit a great deal of leeway in behavior, but others prescribe narrow and specific behavior. Norms may vary in terms of the relevance that they have over the group. Example, for some members, a particular norm may exert great influence, but for others, it may exert little influence. An important norm that groups often establish is how hard a group member should work. Deviations from group norms are not necessarily harmful to a group. Deviations can often help groups move in new directions or challenge old ways of accomplishing tasks that are no longer functional. Norms may be dysfunctional or unethical, and it may be beneficial for members to deviate from them. For example, in a treatment group, norms develop that make it difficult for members to express intense emotions. Members who deviate from this norm help the group re-examine its norms and enable members to deepen their level of communication. The worker should try to understand the meaning of its deviations from group norms and the implications for group functioning. It can also be helpful to point out covered norms and to help groups examine whether these contribute to the effective functioning of the group. Since they are so pervasive and powerful, norms are somewhat more difficult to change than role expectations or status hierarchies. Therefore, a worker should strive to ensure that the developing norms are beneficial to the group. Recognizing the difficulty of changing norms, Levin, 1947, suggested that 3 stages are necessary for changing the equilibrium and the status quo that hold norms constant. There must first be disequilibrium or unfreezing caused by a crisis or other tension-producing situation. During this period, group members re-examine the current group norms. In other cases, dysfunctional norms lead to a crisis. In the second stage, members return to equilibrium with new norms replacing previous ones. According to Levin, the second stage is called freezing. In the third stage, called refreezing, the new equilibrium is stabilized. New norms become recognized and accepted rules by which the group functions. It is important that norms be followed so that membership continues in the group. Roles. Like norms, roles can also be an important influence on group members. Roles are closely related to norms, whereas norms are shared expectations held to some extent by everyone in the group. Roles can be defined as shared expectations about the functions of individual members of the group. Specific role functions include task leader, the maintenance of social emotional leader, the friendly helper, the newcomer. Newer roles keep coming up and existing roles evolve with the passage of time. Roles are important for groups because they encourage delegation of work and appropriate use of power. Important tasks are assigned to a certain responsible individual. Adhering to an assigned role requires that the member follows a certain behavior and therefore limits the member's freedom to deviate from the expected behavior. For example, it would be viewed as inappropriate for an educational group leader to express feelings and emotional reactions about a personal view that was not relevant to the topic. Changes or modifications of roles are best undertaken by discussing members' roles, clarifying the responsibilities and the privileges of existing roles, asking members to assume new roles, or adding new roles according to preferences expressed during the group's discussion. Status. Along with the norms and role expectations, social controls are also exerted through members' status in a group. Status refers to an evaluation and ranking of each member's position in the group relative to all other members. When a group is first formed and the members may all be on an equal level, but over time certain members may acquire status and authority within the group. Status differentials may affect the relative amount of pay among group members, and they may also affect the group's tolerance to violation of group norms. Example: people with higher status may be given more freedom to violate group norms. A person's status within a group is partially determined by his or her prestige, position, and recognized expertise outside the group. In a group, status may also be determined by how well a member is liked by other group members, how much the group relies on the member's expertise, or how much responsibility the member has in the group. It could be determined by how a person acts once he or she becomes a member of a group. As status is defined relative to other group members, a person's status in a group is also affected by the other members who comprise the group. Low status members are the least likely to conform to group norms because they have little to lose by deviating. For this reason, low status members have the potential to be disruptive of productive group processes. This one can be avoided if low status members have hopes of gaining a higher status. Medium status group members tend to conform to group norms so that they can return their status and perhaps gain a higher status. Therefore, workers should provide opportunities for low status members to contribute to the group so that they can become more socially integrated and achieve a higher status. High status members perform many valued services for the group and generally conform to valued group norms when they are establishing their position. However, because of their position, high status members have more freedom to deviate from accepted norms. They are often expected to do something special and creative when the group is in a crisis situation. If medium or low status members consistently deviate from group norms, they are threatened with severe sanctions or forced to leave the group. If high status members consistently deviate from group norms, their status in the group is diminished, but they are rarely threatened with severe sanctions or forced to leave the group. Changing members' roles in the group and helping them to achieve a more visible or responsible position within the group can also increase member status. It has also been shown, however, that individual group members with minority opinions can influence the majority. Norms, roles, and status are interrelated concepts that affect the social integration of individuals in the group. They limit individuality, freedom, and independence, but at the same time stabilize and regulate the operation of the group, helping members to feel comfortable and secure in their positions within the group and with each other. It is desirable that workers should balance the needs of individuals and of the group as a whole, while ensuring that norms, roles, and status hierarchies are working to benefit rather than hinder or limit individual members and the whole group. Workers may find the following principles about these dynamics helpful when facilitating a group. The worker should help group members to assess the extent to which norms, roles, and status hierarchies are helping members feel socially integrated while helping the group to accomplish its goals. The worker should facilitate norms, roles, and status hierarchies that give the group sufficient structure so that interaction does not become disorganized, chaotic, unsafe, or unduly anxiety producing. The worker should avoid facilitating norms, roles, and status hierarchies that restrict members' ability to exercise their own judgment and free will and to accomplish agreed on goals. The worker should ensure that there is freedom and independence within the range of acceptable behaviors agreed on by the group. Members choose to adhere to norms, roles, and status hierarchies in groups that are attractive and cohesive. Workers should help make the group a satisfying experience for members. Members choose to adhere to norms, roles, and status hierarchies when they consider the group's goals important and meaningful. Therefore, workers should emphasize the importance of the group's work and the meaningfulness of each member's contributions. Members choose to adhere to norms, roles, and status hierarchies when they desire continued membership because of their own needs or because of pressure from sources within or outside the group. Therefore, workers should consider the incentives for members to participate in a group. Rewards and sanctions can help members adhere to norms, roles, and status expectations. Workers should assess whether rewards and sanctions are applied fairly and equitably to promote healthy social integration that benefits each member and the group as a whole. In following these principles, workers can ensure that the norms, role expectations, and status hierarchy that develop in a group satisfy members' needs while helping to accomplish individual and group goals. Group culture. With respect to dynamics, group culture is an important force in the group as a whole. Group culture refers to values, beliefs, customs, and traditions held in common by group members. Multicultural differences within the group can have an important impact on the development of group culture and the social integration of all members. For example, individualism, competitiveness, and achievement are more valued in American and European cultures than are humility and modesty, which are more prevalent in some non-Western cultures. According to Levi, culture can be viewed as having three levels. At the surface, symbols and rituals display the culture of the group. For example, in Alcoholics Anonymous groups, members usually begin an interaction by saying their first name and by stating that they are an alcoholic. At a deeper level, culture is displayed in the way members interact with one another. For example, the way conflict is handled in a group says much about its culture. The deepest level of culture includes the core beliefs, ideologies, and values held in common by members. Insensitivity to these values can isolate and alienate minority members and reduce their opportunity for social integration within the group. When the membership of a group is diverse, group culture emerges slowly. Members contribute unique sets of values that originate from their past experiences as well as from their ethnic, cultural, and racial heritages. These values are blended through group communications and interactions. In early meetings, members explore each other's unique value systems and attempt to find a common ground on which they can relate to each other. By later meetings, members have had a chance to share and understand each other's value systems. As a result, a common set of values develops, which becomes the group's culture. The group's culture continues to evolve throughout the life of the group. Group culture emerges more quickly in groups with a homogeneous membership. When members share common life experiences and similar sets of values, their unique perspectives blend more quickly into a group culture. For example, members of groups sponsored by culturally based organizations and groups that represent a particular point of view are more likely to share similar life experiences and similar values than are groups with more diverse memberships. Groups that set out to address community needs must carefully consider dominant community values and traditions. The receptivity of powerful individuals within a community will be determined to some extent by how consistent a group's actions are with the values and traditions they hold in high regard. Whenever possible, groups attempting to address community needs should frame their efforts within the context of dominant community values. The practitioner can help by attempting to find the common ground in the values of the community and the group. When a group's actions are perceived to be in conflict with dominant community values, it is unlikely to receive the support of influential community leaders. Once a culture has developed, members who endorse and share in the culture feel secure and at home, whereas those who do not are likely to feel isolated or even alienated. For isolated members, the group is often not a satisfying experience. It is demoralizing and depressing to feel misunderstood and left out. Those who do not feel comfortable with the culture that has developed are more likely to drop out of the group or become disruptive. More extreme feelings of alienation can lead to rebellious, acting out behavior. Subgroups that feel alienated from the dominant group culture may rebel in various ways against the norms, roles, and status hierarchies that have developed in the group. This can be avoided by providing individual attention to isolated members and by stimulating all members to incorporate beliefs, ideologies, and values that celebrate difference and transcend individual differences. The worker can also help by fostering the full participation and integration of all members into the life of the group. The culture that a group develops has a powerful influence on its ability to achieve its goals while satisfying members' socio-emotional needs. A culture that emphasizes values of self-determination, openness, fairness, and diversity of opinion can do much to facilitate the achievement of group and individual goals. Sometimes members bring ethnic, cultural, or social stereotypes to the group and thus inhibit the group's development and effective functioning. Through interaction and discussion, workers can help members confront stereotypes and learn to understand and appreciate persons who bring different values and cultural and ethnic heritages to the group. In helping the group build a positive culture, the worker should balance members' needs for emotional expressiveness with their needs to accomplish specific goals. Summary of this module. In this module, we discussed about different aspects of group dynamics. We also discussed about how appropriate development of group dynamics can lead to positive outcomes for both the group and its members. Thank you for participating in this module.